Welcome to the Suncoast Spotlight webinar, streaming on YouTube and Facebook. Today we're shining the spotlight on mobile journalism, the new media frontier. It's fast, friendly, flexible, and revolutionizing how we tell stories on the go. Our distinguished panel will show you how to use mobile devices to gather, edit, and distribute your story from your community, empowering you to go mojo. And now, here's our moderator, Mike Castellucci.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Coming to you from Michigan State University in my office up here. By the way, it's 45 degrees. We were just talking about this a little bit. Hope it's a little warmer where you are, although the sun is out. So I've been asked, and I'm very grateful to host and moderate today's webinar on mobile journalism from the Suncoast Spotlight webinar. Very grateful to them. Thank you very much, you guys. It's not just me. We're going to introduce our panel in just a second. Mobile journalism, as I was watching that open, the new media frontier, it's a little, for me, it's a little like, the band that has a hit song and then the DJ says, wow, you're an overnight sensation. And the band says, yes, overnight sensation that took 10 years to get a hit. I'm not saying I have a hit. I'm just saying I've done it for a long time. And finally, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, finally, it's creeping into the journalism departments and professionally. I've actually shot on just a phone for the last 7 or so years, and we'll talk about that a little bit. I'm Mike Castellucci. I'll moderate today, and I hope I get a lot of your questions. But I wanted to introduce our panel. And first, all the way from Puerto Rico, where I'm guessing the temperature is a little above 45 degrees, Mayra Acevedo. She works for WIPR TV in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Hi, Mayra.
Hi. I'm honored, Mike, to share this webinar with you and with Ed, and of course, very excited to be able to connect with students and future journalists and share with some of our experiences and, of course, give them tips. So that will be coming up later on.
Yep. No, go ahead.
Definitely. I'm a broadcast journalist. I started my career in television in an English speaking newscast, which was the only one there. Then I switched over to Spanish. And I also do radio, and I do a digital review for a science and health platform. And besides that, I also have my own business as a content producer for different clients. And of course, all of it, absolutely all of it, even the radio station, is mobile. In fact, I transmit from here every week on Thursdays. So I'm definitely very, very excited that at this point of my career, after almost 30 years, I have discovered how autonomous a journalist can be, embracing all the resources mobile journalism has. And also it's given me new creative leeway, right, using different apps and different gadgets. So basically, those are the two most favorite assets of mobile journalism. And it's lightweight, it's easy, it's fast, and it also connects us directly with the public, with our audiences. And that was not possible in television or radio, at least not that immediately a couple of years back. So I'd gladly share all that experience with you and with our audience today.
We'll try to hit on a little bit of all of that. I know you're working with new gadgets, 360 cameras. We'll look at some of your videos. Looking forward to that. I didn't mean to keep Ed Julby waiting in the wings, but Ed is here as well, part of the panel, senior lecturer at the University of Miami, the Department of Journalism and Media Management. Hi, Ed.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Good.
Hi, Ed.
Hi, Myra. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Yeah, as Mike said, I teach over at the University of Miami in the School of Communication in the Department of Journalism and Media Management. And I went to a conference, I want to say probably about 7-8 years ago now, where there was rumblings of this thing called mobile journalism. And I said, what in the world are they talking about? Because, 7 or 8 years ago doesn't seem that long, but in the world of technology and cell phones, 7 or 8 years is an eternity. And so much has changed, and it's been really quite the adventure to be on, and see how fast the technology changes and how important it is that we keep up and all of those wonderful things. But yeah, it took me a little while to get the class off the ground, but I've been doing it for some time now at UM, and it's been interesting how the dynamics seem to change every semester, and how I get a different sort of mix of students all from all different kinds of majors who want to learn more about this field.
Yeah, it's a completely different type of thing with universities that we're finding. Same here at Michigan State, where we have storytelling with phones courses that are part of the core of the new major of digital storytelling. But, I just wanted to first thank you both. And we're going to obviously just, let's just chat about all of this as things come up. I just wanted to let you know that I'm not this visionary of phonography. I'm not the phonography pioneer. I did it. I started about that same time ago, 7 years ago, selfishly, because I found myself at the time working at a TV station in San Diego, and I found myself in a creative black hole. So instead of using, and I've used the best photojournalists in this business, NPPA Photographers of the Year, National Press Photographers Association. And I learned everything I know from them, just watching them as a reporter for all of those years. It sort of is, just kind of bled off on me when I picked up a phone. But in San Diego, when I was in that creative black hole, I picked up a camera because it just came out. Does anybody remember this? It's called a flip camera. And, you could buy it at Target for $140, and it was awful. There was no place to hook a microphone or change lenses or anything. But I put it upon myself to create a half-hour show with it just to see if I could do it. And it meant doing it alone, much like a painter or something. And I found success with it. So then when I went to Dallas at WFAA, my boss came up to me one day and said, all of our crews are busy. Could you go out and do a story just with your phone? I know you're up for the challenge, because I saw the flip half-hour show. And I said, I don't know. So I cobbled some gear together, went out to this famous artist who was in town, and we started talking a little bit. And after a while, he said, well, and he thought the big Channel 8 was coming out to interview him. He said, well, is your camera person coming out? Lighting? Sound, anything? I said, no, you know what? We're just going to do it with this today. Oop, I turned on my flashlight. He was visibly underwhelmed, but I said, just trust me. And we did the story. And after it aired on the 6 p.m. news, he says, okay, I get it. So I started doing, day turns and some stories for the newscasts, and the anchors would present them as such. Here's a story that Mike Castellucci did only on his iPhone. So then, taking everything to the extreme, I started doing half-hour shows, and we called them phoning it in. And the best part about it is I've been playing on the same playing field as everyone else in this business and getting recognized for it. Not necessarily do they know that I did it on a phone, but just, that I'm doing it. And which brings me to this. Technology changes, storytelling never will. I say that line in every show that I do, and I even put it on a shirt. Look at that. I wish these were for sale, but it's a limited edition of one. So I think this first piece of video will show you where I come from in all of this, and we make a little fun of it. And thankfully, my friends who are photojournalists and the best in the business go along with my hijinks. This was one transition in one of the most recent Phoning It In shows. Roll that videotape.
Yes, so I don't think I'll ever use this phone booth again. There's a lot of traffic.
Hey, you gonna get that? You can't just let a phone keep ringing like that. Do you mind? Excuse me, I'm just trying to get in a phone booth. Excuse me. Talk to me.
Who's this?
Yeah, this is National Edward R. Murrow Award winner for video excellence, Andy Wallace. Who's this?
Mike Castellucci. I phone it in. I shoot everything entirely.
Yeah. Those stories with the iPhones. Great, yeah. Real cute. Yeah, I can tell the difference. I'm the real photojournalist here. I have the eye, and you're not going to get anything past us.
I'm not trying to get anything past any.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. So you're trying to add anxiety to the traditional photographer. Great.
I don't think phonography is going away anytime soon, but it's not about the phone, it's about the creativity of the person using it. Technology changes, storytelling never will.
You know it's against the law to shoot vertical video.
There's a healthy debate about that. So that was, that's part of the show, and I'm going to ask Myra and Ed to jump in here. What I've noticed with some of the storytelling, and I'd like to show one story before we get going with the storytelling with the phone's philosophy, and that is, besides that first person who was visibly underwhelmed and then got it, I've noticed that in doing stories like this, I've found that when I go interview a subject, I see kind of what they're thinking. And usually they're thinking, he's only got a phone. What damage could he do? I call it our one-day relationship. And it seems it's a little more intimate than maybe with a bigger camera and a microphone and all those good things. Myra and Ed, do you agree with me when it comes to going out and interviewing folks with the phone?
Yeah, 100%. Well, people become used to, because they also use their smartphones for video. So like you say, they see it as something very familiar, and it allows you to enter that private, intimate space, which is totally almost impossible with a big camera. But I would say we still here in Puerto Rico get a lot of shrugging. I mean, there's a lot of people who still don't understand or who underplay what the storytelling process using mobile is really all about. So I still once in a while get that like, okay, where's the camera thing? But then a lot of peers are already looking into embracing mobile journalism. But you especially have that kind of tug of war with your technicians, with your cameramen, etc. But definitely the iPhone or the smartphone lets you go into spaces where you were not able to go in before. I mean, literally physical spaces, emotional spaces, psychological spaces.
Yeah, really good. Ed?
Yeah, I was going to say that. So it's something that we know, we talk a lot about, but it's always interesting because early on in my classes, I intentionally don't address that because I want students to kind of figure it out for themselves. And it's always so good and refreshing to hear when they come back and was like, man, I did that interview and it's like nothing was, I was just talking to the person. It wasn't, they weren't intimidated. They weren't scared. They weren't, there's no big flashing red light in their face and a bunch of bright lights. And when they come to that sort of logical conclusion on their own, that this is a way of maybe even telling deeper level stories without all of those intimidating things that can come along with the other stuff. It's really refreshing for them to see that and for them to kind of pick up on it on their own. And then they start to connect the dots and realize that, man, I could do a different level, a different type of story than I could if I showed up with the traditional sort of gear.
Yep. I find it fascinating how it's perceived outside of our business. This is, I want to show you this and we could talk about it. This is a great example. And it has a Florida tie. A couple of years ago, the Jacksonville Jaguars, know them? They were on their way to the Super Bowl. So they were one game away from going to the Super Bowl. And a friend of mine who was a news director in Jacksonville at the time called me up and she said, Mike, can you do the story? And we had talked about this story before. Can you drive down to Ohio, which is about 2.5 hours away from where I'm standing right now, to a little town called Ada, Ohio, because there is a tie-in between the Jacksonville Jaguars, if they make it to the Super Bowl, and this little town, Ada, Ohio. I'm not going to give it all away yet. And I said, sure. So I drove down to Ada, Ohio, and watched the final playoff game that Jacksonville was playing in a little Mexican restaurant, and they lost. Jacksonville did. And so I called her up and I said, "You guys lost. Do you still want the story?" And she said, "Yes, because the Super Bowl is going to be on our NBC stations and it will still be a good story. Since you're down there, do it." So me and my phone went over to this place at about 11:30 at night. And this is the story that I did for them. Then we'll talk about it. Can you roll it?
It's a strange day in Ada, Ohio.
Yeah, my mom retired from Wilson's.
First, in the middle of a brutal winter,
Maybe 30 years, somewhere in that neighborhood.
it's warm enough
Cleaning my wife's car, trying to get the salt off of it.
to wash your car. And strange that Ada, Ohio, population 2,500, and Boston and Philadelphia
Yeah, most of them don't know it, though.
are about to have something big in common. This is the place they'll be stitched together forever.
Well, as soon as we find out who's in the game, we'll start stamping the team names on the ball.
The factory that Dan Regal is opening up tonight.
Where's Pam?
The Wilson plant that one day a year opens up in the middle of the night.
So it's really a pretty well-kept secret that here in Ada, Ohio, a town with a small population, right out in the middle of the cornfields in the Midwest, is where every Super Bowl ball's been made.
You can't play football without the football.
Congratulations.
And it's up to Dan
Good job.
and Rose and Pam and Jim
Our people here work hard every day. They're very proud of what they do.
to sew and lace, and finally tonight,
And making the ball for the NFL is, and the Super Bowl, how can it get any better than that?
a minute after the last NFL playoff game ends,
We're ready to start putting the team names on.
to burn
This will be the first one.
New England and Philadelphia onto the official Super Bowl footballs.
They're looking good.
For 40 years, Rose ran with the ball here.
No,
Never once has she thrown it inside.
because I was always afraid we'd break the lights.
Dan runs the plant.
Oh yeah, I'll miss it a lot. I'll miss the people.
Both will retire in a couple months. Chances are not too many people in New England and Philadelphia know about Ada, Ohio. But all three are tied together now.
This will be my last Super Bowl. Yep.
Mike Castellucci, First Coast News, on your side.
Little story from Jacksonville, and they aired it in Jacksonville. And then she sent it to all the NBC affiliates within that station group. And so that story aired basically on 18 NBC affiliates around the country. Here's the interesting point that I wanted to bring up, Myra and Ed. While I was shooting there, I was the only journalist there. There was the local newspaper person, but that was it. In the middle of it, I got a call. I don't know how they found me. I got a call from a producer of one of the network nightly newses. And they said, "Hey, we know you're there. Do you mind if you shoot some video for us for our nightly news?" And I said, "No. And by the way, I'm only shooting it on my phone." There was a silence on the other end.
Yeah.
And she said, "You know what, let me hang on, let me get back to you." She called me back in 10 minutes and said, "You know what, we're going to send a crew from New York tomorrow. They'll be there. Don't worry about it." So this is what I get a lot of if I tell them that, and so tell me, Ed and Myra, I think this philosophy is changing, but it's been a while. And so I wanted to get your thoughts, and then before I get your thoughts, let me tell you this. The story aired, like I told you, in 18 different markets, and Wilson loved it so much, the public relations and marketing folks there, that because I got it on YouTube, and I think I had 5,000 hits overnight. They sent me one of their Super Bowl footballs with my name burned in on it. Isn't that so?
Mhm.
So I think it worked. But tell me about what you have felt with just using a phone.
Ed, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So it's definitely been a slow burn. It's definitely been something that takes some getting used to. I think with, obviously the proliferation of cell phones globally, people are getting more and more comfortable with accepting it. I think old habits die hard. But as the cell phones continue to make strides technologically with the capability and low light performance and other things like that have always been sort of the thorn in the side of shooting with mobile, it's the lines are definitely blurring. I have a student who took my class, I want to say about 3 semesters ago, and she got her first TV reporting job in Champaign, Illinois. And she got, originally when she was assigned there, she was they gave her camera equipment to go be an MMJ. And she's looked at the camera equipment. She's like, that's kind of a lot of stuff. I took this class at UM, went to her supervisor and producer and said, do you mind if I just shoot everything with my phone? And they kind of looked at her like she was a little bit crazy at first, but then they said, all right, well, we'll give you a shot. Let's see what you can do. And she went out and she produced a couple packages with it. And they're like, it works. It's good enough for us. We're going to take it. And she's never gone back to the other camera since.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a little while. I mean, it's been a process, but I think more and more it's getting harder and harder to tell. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Right. And Myra, I didn't mean to interrupt. And Myra, I know you work at a TV station in Puerto Rico and do it almost exclusively with your phone. You know, I just wanted to preface your answer with what I've found over here is there are not or at least a few years ago, there weren't a lot of people doing what I was attempting to do. I did find a small group over in Europe, and they have invited me every year to the largest mobile journalism conference in the world. It's called Mojo Fest, and I know, Mario, you're familiar with it. And they too are a small group, but it's more prolific over there. The BBC uses it a lot. I know some TV stations in the Netherlands also. I mean, all over the world, actually, they come to that conference. But what I found here was not a lot, some, but that is definitely changing. And I think it's definitely changed after the pandemic. I don't know if it will change back or not, or if it will continue. I know a lot of TV folks use an iPhone for their second or third camera, but not their first. Myra, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I totally agree that the people are getting more used to it. But while we're still facing on this part of the world certain resistance, you have in Europe and Asia newscasts that are solely made in mobile, especially in India and Uzbekistan. So we'll probably be seeing more media outlets solely on mobile, and because the technology is making that camera, which is the smartphone camera, even better than some digital appliances we have in broadcast. I mean, my phone can do 4K, my TV camera cannot. And in fact, what we do is that sometimes if the cameraman gets stuck on, let's say, a place and he can't move from that place, then I go and shoot some video with my phone, and then we incorporate it in our stories. So even if we don't do the whole mobile story for the newscast, we do incorporate mobile video. So I know there's a lot of questions out there on how we can improve the camera, etc. But there's lenses, there are apps that make that camera, which for me is the best camera because it's the one I have. It's the one we carry in our pocket. I stash in my bag, and it's the one I have 24 hours a day. So it's worthwhile really learning how to use it and maximize its potential to do stories.
Myra, answering the question, what is the best camera? It's the one that you have on
you. It's the one you have, okay. Yes.
Hey, Lucas Figueroa from CCNN Live from Miami asks, he says, I love your storytelling, Mike. Can you tell me about your writing process and how you get so many amazing nap pops and interactive sound bites? Lucas, this great question. You know, it's all about the storytelling. You know, I have always felt that you can have a mediocrely shot, is that a word, mediocrely? It is now, shot piece. But if it's told well and it's written well and it's put together well, it's going to be great. You can have a great piece shot incredibly well and the writing is poor and it won't be as good. So I've always felt that, you know, all any of us want, Lucas, is to be told a good story. If you can, here's the key. If you can write a beautiful story with amazing pictures, and incredible sound bites and put it all together in a well-written story, it's a win. That's all any of us want. And if you could get some sort of emotion from your viewer, whether it be 8 seconds in a 2-minute story, or maybe the whole 2 minutes, or maybe 8 minutes, you know, that's what this is all about. And it's all about people. You don't want to do a story on the building over here, but you want to do a story on the storefront owner who watches that big building go up. I mean, it's just, you know, it's all about the people. And if you want to chime in, Myra and Ed.
Well, I think it's about maintaining journalism ethics and the rules. I mean, if not, it wouldn't be mobile journalism. It'll probably be citizens journalism, or right, just some amateur video. So the how would you say, destrezas, the knowledge and the talent of a journalist is put to use effectively in mobile journalism through these new techniques and these new apps or these new devices. So it's still journalism, and we can't forget about that. And I also wanted to say, Ed and Mike, that although we don't know if television is going to disappear, I don't think so. But every year there are more people using mobile devices. In fact, there's I took some from Pewter Research, some data, and I think there were like 92 billion people with smartphones. And after the pandemic, people got used to being on their mobile devices. And here in Puerto Rico, it especially happened after Hurricane Maria, where there was no lighting, there was little internet, and people would be going everywhere trying to get the best internet signal, and they would be on their mobile devices all the time. So after Hurricane Maria, which is where really mobile exploded for me, people are looking for news stories on their mobile. It's personal. They can search for it, and they can interact and give their feedback, which I think is very empowering, and it's very empowering for them and for us.
And Myra, you have some video from the hurricane or after the hurricane. Can we see a little bit of that?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Saludos, nos encontramos aquí en el área de Maternillo, la Marina Sardinera en Fajardo. Esto da justo en la costa. Y aquí todavía estamos viendo escombros del paso del huracán Irma, pero lo más importante es que ya se están sintiendo ráfagas y también lloviznas, hay bandas de lluvias. Les voy a mostrar un poco cómo se ve el panorama. Ahí están viendo, Eddie Joel, gracias por estar con nosotros, y Gretchen Ortiz también. Esto es en directo. Ya se ve el cielo bien.
That was a live shot. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Está soplando con bastante fuerza la brisa. Es un área típicamente por todos los fenómenos que cruzan por esta región.
And people started looking for live stories because they were on the street looking for supplies, fixing their homes, trying to get safe. And some of those pieces went viral. There's this 5-minute interview I did with a farmer up in the mountains, and it was just me and that lav microphone, which is a very inexpensive Boya, which only cost like $30. And that 5-minute piece where he was just here in his farm and I was just talking to him, I wasn't even in the video. It reached 1.2 million people, and it has like over 60,000 comments and people sharing it. Of course, there's Puerto Ricans all around the world. And so things can be very simple. I know Ed does Ed and Mike do very complete stories. I'm not yet at that point, although I did recently do a half-hour show for television, which was 90% shot on the phone, but nonetheless, it went to post-production for television, and I did a stand-up on our studio, so it kind of like that doesn't count. But like I do more live and immediate stories. In fact, our newscast is really late. It's at 10 o'clock. So when I cover something at 9, 10, 11 o'clock, we can't wait until 10 o'clock to tell people. So that's where I go into mobile. I do some video, I do some editing on the phone, some very simple stuff, and I publish it on social media.
Thanks, Myra. Completely a different way to use mobile. Appreciate seeing that. Ed, do you have any comments before I?
Yeah, just on the interactive SOT thing, this is a question that comes up a lot from my students because, like I said earlier, well, I get students from all walks of life. They're not necessarily journalism majors. So early on, they struggle with this same idea of finding it because they've never conducted an interview before in their life. They don't know what to look for. They don't know who to talk to. And I always refer them back to this acronym by Bob Dotson. He says, find cool people, colorful, opinionated, outgoing, and lively, because they're going to give you the interactive SOTs that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And if you find those people, trust me, it's not going to take a lot to get them to give you what you're looking for and what you need to tell that story the best way possible.
Well, that's right. But some of the people that I come across don't know they have a story to tell at all. So it is your job as a journalist to find that story, and they usually do. I've got a question from Matthew Casada, CNN. Would you rather use your phone or a camera? I'm not going to answer that yet. Let me read another question here from Lucas Figueroa from CCNN live from Miami. He asks, one thing I don't like about shooting on my phone is how wide it is. And any zooming lowers the image quality any way around that. So we're getting some technical questions, and I'd love to show my rig, and I'll go through a little bit of that. But let me just answer those questions this way. I'll do these workshops, and people will say, "Well, what's the disadvantages of a phone?" And I'll think, and the first time that I was asked that, I thought for a minute, and I couldn't come up with any disadvantage. The one disadvantage that I thought of later was exactly what you just brought up, Lucas, how wide it is. So the way I get around that is I zoom with my feet. That's it's a thing that I teach here, where I just get up close to something, and so you can't get close to the moon, and so I don't do stories on the moon. A football field, another thing that is sort of hard because the field is so big and you have to stay on the sidelines. But there are ways around that, especially if you're focusing your piece on a player. Players come to the sidelines, coaches talk. There are ways to tell every story with a phone, in my opinion. The best part about this might be a good time to show this story, is what I've really enjoyed over the years is proving everybody wrong. If they have an excuse about using a phone, well, I like to go ahead and show them that it can be done. In this particular case, at the station, some of my colleagues were saying, "Oh, sure, Mike, you have days to produce a story, and we only have a couple of hours. We do day turns. We do news around here." And so I started going out on the news and doing day turns. In this particular case, it's just a 1.5-minute story. In this particular case, I went out unassigned at noon to shoot a prayer vigil. Some police officers were shot the day before in Dallas, Texas. This was a few years ago. And I wanted to see if I could get a story in my lunch break. So I went out, found the story, came back, wrote it and edited it. And all of a sudden, it was, one of the lead stories at 5 p.m. And let's watch it, and maybe we can figure out why. Here's the prayer vigil from Dallas.
We're all different.
I mean, this is crazy.
How do you wind up here today at noon?
Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, we're all the same. We're all people.
Jacob Gallegos left work.
And I mean, it's a shame that it takes something like this to unite us all, because this is really beautiful.
Walked here alone and tried to wrap his head around what happened in his city, a few blocks away just a half day ago.
Got to bring everybody back together.
12 law enforcement officers shot, 5 died.
I figured this is my best approach in order to do it.
We're all different. John Matthew Kennedy decided to place himself at the entrance of the prayer vigil and not in it.
Honestly, I was at work last night over in Uptown, and whenever it came on the news, I didn't stop watching it, didn't go to bed. I was up at 4 o'clock this morning.
Bringing love where there is hatred.
He didn't hear any speaker.
I've honestly felt like I've touched hearts with at least over 300 people so far.
It turns out he was needed
And counting.
here.
And counting.
God bless you.
Oh, hi.
Thank you.
And then
Thank you.
this.
Thank you. Hey.
It meant a lot to John Matthew Kennedy.
Thank you.
It meant a lot to both of them.
The support, though.
I appreciate everything.
Mike
you
Kessler,
do.
Channel 8 News.
Yeah. So in this case, you know, I never made it into the prayer vigil. We had 4 crews that had microphones on the podium, and I never made it in because I was stopped by the gentleman that was out front giving hugs. I put a wireless microphone on him, and we'll talk about that gear, and that was it. But it was about somebody. Let me just address the question of writing, and I hope you guys can chime in here. You know, I love Boyd Hupert, one of the best storytellers in the country, and Steve Hartman. Someone asked Steve Hartman how he writes so well. What is his key? And he said, you know, I really feel like an imposter because it's not easy. He'll write it, and then he says he'll rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite. Boyd Hupert says the same thing. Boyd Hupert says he'll write it and then unwrite it, which means he'll take his script and then, you know, make it more succinct. I do the same thing. I'll write it and then rewrite it and unwrite it. I've often learned that sometimes a 2-word sentence is better than a 10-word sentence, and it could be more effective. So writing is elusive. Let me tell you this. I did a little TEDx talk on this. It's called layers of perception when using a phone. I said, if you can layer all of these things, what do we first think about if we see iPhone video? What's the first thing that comes to mind? That we know that someone shot it on their phone. You guys, I'll let Edward and Myra speak up.
The unstableness.
That's the first thing. It took Myra 1/2 of a second to come up with that, and she's right. So if you can put a layer of perception on there to get it steady instead of shaky, then that's one layer of perception, and that's easily done with the tripod. What's the next? Anything else come to mind, Ed?
Bad audio.
What's that? Bad audio.
Bad audio.
So if you could fix the bad audio on a phone, you know, it's funny when you hear, when you see home movies with people shot with their phone, the person shooting it is clear as a bell because they're close to the microphone, but the person 30 feet away, you can't hear them at all. Waves are crashing. So if you could figure out a way to get a professional microphone into the phone, that's another layer of perception. So all of these layers of perception are available to you. The one that I can't find at B&H Photo or Amazon is how to write a story. I'm still working on it. It's been 30 years and it's a constant process. But if you can work on that, then you know, you've got it all figured out. This isn't about, I don't think, mobile journalism. It makes things easier for us. I was a reporter for 30 years, never picked up a camera, and I don't want to pick up a camera, so I use a phone. You know, it's the easiest thing to do, and I could do it alone. But it's all about storytelling. You guys?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the zoom question. Although the best zoom technique is your feet moving into the subject, there are also some very good lenses out there. I don't want to publicize anybody, but there's moment lenses, and then there's apps like Filmic Pro that will actually make your camera better. And besides, cell phones now, these devices are getting more and more sophisticated. So some have various lenses like this one, and they will allow you to have different sort of shots. So I think that eventually, as technology keeps on improving these devices, we'll be able to go around all those issues. But nonetheless, it's less expensive to have this technology. It's lightweight and it's very convenient. So I think definitely mainstream media will be incorporating all these gadgets because broadcasting is very expensive. And as the world economy is having problems, so does media. So media has been, I don't know about you guys, but here we've been having cuts everywhere. Newspapers, newscasts have been laying off people. And it's basically because it's an expensive process. So if we can learn how to do journalism in a more efficient, costly efficient way, and of course with all the journalism principles, well, I think we have something good for the future.
Yep. I know we're already running out of time. I'm trying to make sure that we try to get everything in. Let me get a bunch of these questions in right now. And one of them is from Tony Leal, MDC. I'm laughing because I'd love to have this debate. Would you rather shoot horizontal or vertical? So I'm laughing because because it's a serious debate. So I always do this, and then we'll go. I always shoot horizontal. One of those things with the layers of perception, I feel, is we know it was shot on a phone if it's shot vertically, because we see the black on each side. You know, all of our screens, we call them 16 by 9. They're more wide than they are tall. That used to not be that way, but it is now. So, you know, shooting this way, you get a wider perspective. And Myra, I know someone it was either England or Ireland, a filmmaker who shot an entire film, a short film, vertical. He just wanted to see what it would look like. It was beautiful, but I still felt a little claustrophobic. My thought is always this way, because you know, I know we all look at our phones this way, so video and all of that good stuff. But let me just throw this out at you. Our eyes are not on top of each other. They're actually, you know, side by side. Horizontal. Yeah, if they were on top of each other, I think vertical would be good. Also, on all of the different platforms, Instagram is 1 by 1. It's a square, but Facebook and Snap and all of these, you can still look at a horizontally shot video on any of those formats. But if you do it vertically, I think you limit yourself on all of these formats.
Yeah, you can only use it on Instagram stories.
That's right. I don't think vertical's going away, but I just, you know, I think horizontal is, you know, imagine going to a movie theater and the big screen opens up and all of a sudden you're just looking at this, you know, little vertical thing in the middle. Ed, you're laughing.
Yeah, I have my students shoot both ways, depending. What I talk about a lot is it depends on your intended distribution outlet. So if I know I'm doing a piece for broadcast, or if you know you're doing a piece for broadcast for the class or for whatever, shoot horizontal. If we know we're going to produce something that's strictly going to social for social, then vertical. You know, I've come around on that. I used to be a horizontal only guy because my broadcast production background taught me that horizontal was the only way to go. But I've seen the light and the value in shooting vertical, especially if that's your intended distribution method. You know, we do a lot of work with Yusuf Omar. So for those of you listening who you want to follow somebody who's terrific,
have to follow them.
You know, he doesn't shoot anything horizontal, so he's on the other end of the spectrum. And so, you know, we've done a lot of projects with him throughout the years. He comes to my classes and talks to. He's a terrific guy and does some really great work. And at the end of it, like you said with your shirt, the tech is just a small part of it. If you don't have the good story to start with, it doesn't matter. You could shoot at an angle. If the story stinks, nobody's going to watch it.
Like the old Batman episodes at an angle? Anyway, that's way too old. Hey, speaking of your students, Ed, Sophia chimes in and she says she was your student and she's a reporter who only shoots on her phone.
Yeah, she was the one I was talking about earlier.
Okay.
I'm glad she's here. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Heather Bailey with First Coast News. That's actually from that football story. It's the same station. Could you share some of the gear and apps you use or tips or tricks with your phone to shoot and edit? I know we're running short of time, but I did want to get everybody's always wondering how I do it with the audio. And, you know, first of all, this is my rig. It's a really nice tripod. The key to the tripod is a fluid head. It's a video fluid head. It makes for really nice, pans and tilts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then on the top, I've got let's see, I've got the Sennheiser. This one is a Sennheiser MKE 200. It's not really a shotgun microphone, but I use it as one. It's $99. There are cheaper ones, and I'm not getting, I'm not endorsing any of these. It's just what I use. I've used a Rode shotgun also. But here's the game changer, I think, for me. This little Rode right here. Why isn't it focusing? Right here. It's called the Rode Wireless 2 Go. And so this is a receiver that, plugs into my phone right here with this little cord. So you have to have the right cords, and there are a couple of different ones. I don't have the time to get into them now. But so if you had that plugs into your phone, then I have these two little microphones. This is actually a microphone at the end of this. You could plug a lavalier in it, but it's just, this is one transmitter and two transmitters. So you could put one on one subject and one on the other and have two channels of audio. I think, I've been using a wireless microphone, not this one, a Sennheiser for forever, and it's the best. And I only use, all of the stories that you've seen so far is just one phone and one microphone, and the shotgun microphone. So what I do is I'll plug the subject in with the wireless microphone. They'll be talking, and maybe a train will go by. I'll unplug it from my phone, plug in the shotgun microphone, get the natural sound of a train going by, and then redo it, plug it back in, start talking to them again. So that's basically, and by the way, I do use some lenses. The question earlier was, I find the iPhone lens too wide. So do I. In the 12, the wide angle is too wide for me to use all of the time. The regular view of the iPhone is a little too limited. So I have actually a wide angle lens that's about 18 millimeters. The wide angle on the iPhone 12 is 13 millimeters, I believe. So I could use the attached wide angle lens and leave it on 90% of the time. I can unscrew that one and put a telephoto lens on it too. There are any types of, you could put DSLR lenses on my rig, on the Beast Grip rig. So, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, we could spend all afternoon on just the little technical stuff. Myra has, I know she uses, maybe we could show a little bit of the video. She uses 360.
Regresamos a las afueras del centro de convenciones, a mis espaldas, una fila de oficiales de la uniformada que bloquean la entrada al centro de convenciones por la protesta estudiantil de estudiantes de la UPR que se han dado cita aquí en protesta por la aprobación eventualmente de un plan fiscal que les va a aumentar la matrícula.
So you can see I have my mobile gear right there. I use the cameraman's iPhone to be able to do that piece. But this is probably like the new trending stuff, right? The future of mobile, which is immersive journalism, augmented reality, 360 video. And well, that was like a shot. I think I was the first one in Puerto Rico on television to ever do that. That was streamed Facebook Live. It was actually a protest going on. So as you see, I do a lot of live stuff, right? So my gear is not as high end as Mike's. My microphone is usually a Boya or a Movo, which is inexpensive. This is like a boom, and this is my grip. It's a very inexpensive grip, and it stabilizes video whenever I'm on the run. And I also use this, which was what I used in the first piece, which is a Boya condenser mic. So it's relatively inexpensive. And like I'm on the street, I've lost a couple of mics because I'm either on the run or it gets lost somewhere. So I try to keep it simple and keep it light because like I work in television, I'm also carrying TV gear around or helping out. So what I use is anything I can stash in my bag. And hopefully I'll be leveling it up a lot, especially after this webinar and the influence Mike is having and Ed. So I'll go into trying new stuff. But for now, if you're a reporter and you're on the street, try to keep it simple and try to keep it light.
Yeah, and speaking of the webinar, we're running out of time, and so we'll just close with a couple of comments. I did want to mention this question from Egypt, actually. He says he's considered one of the best mobile journalism journalists in the Arab region, but he faces a problem with TV stations, TV channels, and websites from mobile journalists. They don't think it's high quality or whatever their thinking is. I've run into that too here. And he asks, in my opinion, you know, how you get by that problem. I don't know, but I'll tell you this. This is how I get by it. I don't tell them. In some cases, it's, you know, when our anchor said, and here's a story shot only with an iPhone from Mike Castellucci, it became a thing, a positive thing. In other cases, I wasn't even let into a press conference because they thought I was a blogger or just a fan or something. I think all of that is changing, but it's changing slowly. I'll end with this, and Ed and Myra, you can wrap up your thoughts as well. Like I said in the beginning, it's nice to be thought of as a pioneer in phonography. I did it because I found myself in a creative black hole that I couldn't work with the photojournalist that I wanted to for various reasons. And it was a way for me to create by myself. And I really enjoy that. And I really enjoy telling folks' stories. And, you know, if it causes an action by a viewer or an emotion, it's a victory. And that's why I do it. And it's as simple as that. Myra, do you want
yeah, well, I guess the best part of mobile journalism is it gives journalists autonomy. It gives them new forms to be creative, and you don't have to depend on anybody. You can just do your story, put it together, edit it on your iPhone, put in the graphics, do absolutely everything that would probably take about 20 people in a television newsroom. So here it is, you're independent. You're on your own. You can do whatever it is you want. Use your best tools, your best resources, and get those really good stories out there. So I would just like to encourage students to explore a whole bunch of people. Besides following Mike and Ed, I'm following them on Twitter. I prepared a small list of people that you should also. There's Mike. Ed tag is further down, but there goes Yusuf Omar, which is kind of like the guy who's really innovating, and Yos Contenidos, that's in Spanish. So if you want, I know there's a lot of Spanish speaking students connected with us. So they're in Spain, and they're also like pioneer. And the thing is, I don't know if you've noticed, most people in mobile journalism are mid and senior career journalists. And I think it's because we really saw the potential coming from tapes and coming from big gear of what we can do with all this smaller gear. So yeah, I think that's probably all around the world. It's senior journalists who are embracing mobile journalism.
Ed?
Yeah, I agree with all those sentiments. You know, I tell my students all the time, if one thing mobile journalism has done, it's reduced or eliminated the barriers to entry. You don't need a satellite truck. You don't need a $100,000 Sony XD camera. Those things are wonderful. They're great. They have their place. But I tell them too, you can complain about journalism by doing journalism. There's no reason you can't go out and start producing the kinds of stories that you want and build a following on social media. I mean, think about it, with the push of a button, you could have a global audience. I mean, where else do you have that kind of reach? And it's really remarkable and powerful when you start seeing video that's shot on a phone, creating social change and social justice and things that are happening both domestically and abroad, all because somebody took the time to shoot something on their phone. So when you start to really think about the amount of power that one person can have from this little device that's always with you, and it can do I tell my students all the time, it can do a lot more than just take pictures and send text messages. And if we use it and harness that power, it could really be something that can make a difference. And to answer Heather's question real quick about apps, there's two main things that I always touch on. When it comes to shooting, if you really want to up your game, the number one app to go to is Filmic Pro. And if you want to edit on a mobile device, especially, if you're on iOS, the go-to app is called Luma Fusion. They're not cheap as far as apps go, but if you really want to step up your mobile game and do it all mobile, which is what I have my students do, because as Myra said, yeah, you can shoot a bunch of stuff and then dump it to a computer. But I make my students edit all of their stuff on the phone too. And they always have that argument with me like, hey, can't I just do this on my computer? I said, yes. But the point is, what happens when you're out and about and your computer's not with you? I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm saying you shouldn't, because then you're shortchanging yourself of this opportunity to learn, hey, I have this little device with me all the time. What can I really accomplish with this? And when I sort of hold their feet to the fire on that and they actually do it, they're like, wow, I never realized it, right? And so it's pretty remarkable when you think about it in those terms.
Very empowering. That's a journalist is all on his own to do all the work according to his criteria. And I think it's wonderful. I'm just fascinated with mobile journalism.
Great thoughts, y'all. Thank you so much. I do have a final thought. People say, well, what's the next technology? It's already changed for me with the flip camera, and there's other things. But I feel that the iPhone, the phones, the mobile phones, Androids, they're going to be around for a while. I don't think they're going anywhere soon. I do know this. I know newsrooms are getting smaller, and I think a lot of the TV groups are headed to a model of an embedded journalist within their community. I'm the model for that. I've been doing it for 7 years that way, basically. And I just think it's, some photojournalists will kid me and they'll say, oh, you're putting me out of a job. No, you still have to know a shot. You still have to be able to tell a story. You still have to be able to be the creative that you are. So I don't think that's necessarily the case. In fact, a lot of the photojournalists I work with 3 or 4 cameras on a shoot. So they might have a GoPro, a phone, a big camera, all kinds of those things. So they're already implementing these things into their work. So with that, I know we're out of time, but I wanted to show how, if you have any questions for either Myra or Ed or me, you could get a hold of us this way. I don't know about Myra, Ed. I have a YouTube page. It's just my name, Mike Castellucci, and all of the stories that you see on there and the half-hour shows were done completely and entirely with my one phone and usually one mic. I just got the new 2 mic. I'm going to go out and shoot right now. You guys, thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Thank you. You can go to my YouTube channel where there's some more stories. And I'm going to make public a list of people to follow on my Twitter handle. So if folks want to know about other people doing other stuff, well, I'll be glad to publish that.
Yeah, likewise, if you guys have tech questions or any other things that we didn't get a chance to get to here in this webinar, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to respond.
Thanks, y'all. I'm going to go enjoy the sunshine in Michigan. It's up to 49 degrees.
Bye. Till next time.
On behalf of the Suncoast Student Production Awards Committee, thank you for joining us. For more information about our awards, scholarships, or future webinars, go to suncoastchapter.org.